You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Fantastic. Fantastic. I hope you have a good day.
Hope you have a better week.
I hope your month is full of successful days and a lot of great ventures. I hope you just come up, brother.
I hope your whole fucking year is spectacular.
Oh, you hope my year is spectacular?
Yeah.
You got something you want to say to me?
You got something you want to say?
Before we leave, my riddle for the next episode of One Gotta Stay. So down here in the Southeast, it's been raining a lot, and I haven't gotten the chance to sing. In the rain. I might have thrown away my shot.
And I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot.
But you know what? I'm gonna let it go. Let that go, because I don't think that the sound of music coming out of my mouth is going to be pleasant for anybody.
Wow.
So for Brian, for Jill, for Jake, for Alicia, and for Aaron. What up, family? It's your boy Amaru, and we are back for another episode of One Gotta Stay. And this is another episode that I know nothing about. So I have a bunch of people here who do. Maybe not nothing, but very, very happy to have a lot of them on. A lot of new faces, a couple returning ones, and of course this gentleman who. Yeah, just go on ahead. Bar, how you doing? You know I hit you up the second we talked about musicals, because of course I know you as the musical man. So how are you doing today, Bar?
I am ready for this. I was theatrically trained, so I know how this stuff works. I know the balances. I know who's pitchy and who's shrill and who's amazing. I am here for the theatre.
And that is why your nickname is the Pretentious Hack. But we're gonna move on to somebody I'm very happy to have on. You know her from the Schmodown. You know her from all the things. Miss Claudia Duff. Claudia, she hit me up, was like, musical theater, let's go. And I was like, yes, please. How are you doing today? I'm very happy to have you on.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Like I told you before, I'm stoked to talk about musical theater. I've made somewhat of a living doing it myself, so I'm excited to talk about it all day long.
All right, perfect. And right below you, the second this hit, I had a couple of people like, Maxwell, where's Maxwell? Can we have Maxwell? Where's Maxwell? Because he might hurt somebody on their opinions, but there's no way Maxwell cannot be on here talking about it. So Maxwell, I'm glad to have you on for the first time. How are you doing?
I'm great. It wasn't even me who was like, let's do it. It was other people. So I had people advocating on my behalf. I'm like, all right, let's go. Yeah, I mean, musicals are pretty much my life. I produce theater. I'm a Tony nominee. So this is like my bread and butter.
Man, maybe I should have y'all host it. Anyway, next to Maxwell, this man has been wanting to get on for a while. He was very adamant about the Disney episode, but I had a lot of lists last time, so I made sure to get him on this time. I got a couple people who wanted to be on this one. I was like, I'm sorry. But anyway, Will, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm glad that you didn't take my minor harassment, too seriously. But no, as soon as I saw the end of the episode, it's like, okay, any chance to talk about any of these people, I really need to get on. So any bribe that I could send your way, I was willing to do. So.
I mean, I only made this face like once or twice when you hit me up. It's okay.
Hey, if there's only once or twice, then that's an improvement. So
okay, perfect. All right, and right next to him is my other man. Who anytime we have any music and it's any genre, anything musical wise, I feel like I look at my email and he's the first to send me a list. Always happy to have him. Ryan, not Payne, not Permison, but O'Regan. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yes, I will admit I was a little upset that I did not get onto the Disney musicals one. That's okay. I'm going to let that slide. Because to take from another animated musical, I'm playing with the big boys now. We're talking Broadway, and being someone who lives about an hour away from the Great White Way, I appreciate you bringing me on for this one.
Of course, man. Of course. Always nice to have you. And last but not least, the man from the place that I will never go back to again unless I'm getting paid. I am not from there. I made a stop there. I was in a suburb of Cleveland.
Same suburb as me. Same suburb.
He's been, same suburb. He's been ducking these episodes. I've been hitting him up. He's been too scared until now. Matt, how you doing? Check out Spin from the Real, by the way. Coming up in about an hour. We will be
to be fair, I only ducked one episode, and you know why. Secondly, as soon as I saw this, I said, musicals? Yes, please. Outside of film and everything, I was raised on musical theater. I was at Lion King opening weekend in Broadway. My family has season tickets to Playhouse Square out here in Cleveland. And yeah, I just honestly, and I was a theater kid also, so I was excited.
All right. And there was one more panelist, but he forgot that he had this and he has a match going on right now. But that's okay. I will fill in for Mr. Caleb Coho. I won't say much of anything about it, but we'll see how that works a little later. But if you just in case you're wondering who we are talking about, I feel like I put together a pretty good list of some legends and some soon-to-be legends in the musical genre, both stage and screen. We are choosing to keep only one of the works, and that includes everything. Anything they've ever done, of one person between Lin-Manuel Miranda, Gene Kelly, Julie Andrews, and Idina Menzel.
Wow.
Okay,
Travolta.
You almost Travolted it. Yep.
I had to do it once because somebody else.
It's Adele Kazim. It was Adele Kazim.
Yes, exactly.
I don't care if it's Amy Kamosi. Come on.
With that, we're just gonna get started, and I'm gonna allow Ms. Dolph to go ahead and go first with your number 4.
Bye, Idina. Bye.
Adele Dazeem is gone.
Adele Dazeem is gone. And for this reason, this is something that's irked me ever since she said it, and I'd be curious to hear what everybody else thinks. But she missed a note in a performance. The big "Let It Go" at the end there, and then proceeded to make an excuse and say, "Well, as long as I'm hitting 75% of the notes, I've succeeded." And I'm like, what? That's horrifying to me. And that might just also be I was trained as a ballet dancer, and there's no way if we only got 75% of the steps, the choreography correct, we'd be fired. I'd be fined at least.
That seems like a really weird number to throw out there, 75%. But yeah, I missed that one. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that.
Does anybody else also have Idina as number 4?
Yep.
I'm not sure.
I mean, look, all 4 people are talented. That's not an argument. But as far as compared to the other 3, Idina just doesn't bring as much to the table. I mean, if you even look at her filmography, it's, Frozen, Enchanted. I'm a Disney fan, but, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of, not other talents like coming up. There's so many people on Broadway, and the fact that Idina Menzel is pretty much like the poster child for, Broadway singers. There are other people out there. You don't need to necessarily focus on her so often. It's like I'm being choked by it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Frozen 2 poster hanging in my living room, so as much as it pains me to lose those movies in the context of this experiment, I'm going to use a word here that I usually hate to use, but I think Idina Menzel might be the single most overrated musical performer of the last 20 years. She's nasally. She's pitchy. I saw her in If Then and did not hit her notes. She was not giving it her all. And even in these movies that she's in, and she's been in a limited number of movies, she's the weakest part of all the movies she's in. Like Enchanted is the Amy Adams show and the James Marsden show. Idina can go.
Well, damn.
Even Rent, not the strongest performer in Rent.
Oh.
No, and she's not the best person to play Maureen in the history of Rent. So.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot she was on Glee, so Glee would be gone. I loved Glee. I did.
I never watched it.
Yeah.
I never watched Glee either, so I can't say anything.
Glee was good for the first 3 seasons, and then
whenever they graduated, that's when it all went.
Yeah.
She is great in Uncut Gems, and she does my Jewish heart proud in that movie. But
Uncut Gems is a brilliant movie. I love that movie.
Compared to the other 3 people, it's like, sorry, girl.
Anything else, Claudia, on Idina before we move on to somebody else's number 4?
No, I agree with everything that everyone has said. She just is, as far as her contribution to everything, it's just not as extensive. I mean, and the other 3 are going to be painful for me to get through. Painful because I adore them all, but Idina just doesn't have the breadth of work that the other 3 do.
I mean, based off the reactions, it doesn't seem like Idina was very hard for anybody to get rid of, though only 3 of you did so far.
Yeah, that really makes me worried that, you only have like half of us chopping her down, but I'm not really hearing any arguments to keep her.
Yeah, so we'll see how that happens. We'll just get started with it now. Var, who's your number 4?
I'm gonna die. Yeah, my number 4 is Lin. Look, I love everybody in this list. This was a hard list for me to make, but I think that as a writer, as a songwriter, he's very good. There's really only a few things that I can base that on. As an actor and as a singer, he's probably the weakest of the 4, even though I'm not saying he's bad. I think he's just kind of the weakest of the 4 in that sense. And that's kind of what I based a large majority of my opinion on, is them as an actual performer. So...
Oh, the amount of shade. Oh.
Thank you, Max.
So,
thank you.
I love all 4 of them, but as I said, I was basing this more on them as a performer. So as great as I think he is, I think he might be the weakest of the 4.
Boy, if you don't get...
Does anybody else have Lin-Manuel? No! Nobody else has them. Y'all go ahead. Anything to say to Bar?
Well, I'm speechless. That's the best thing I can say.
Okay, here's what I will say. As somebody who is in musical theater, somebody who is Mexican, and somebody who is looking at his entire body of work, one, I will agree with you, he's not the greatest singer. He might not be the greatest actor, but he's solid. Singing, in the Heights, he got a little judged up there, for sure. But what he has brought to the table as far as opportunity for people in my community and all people of color in general is enormous. Now, we don't just have West Side Story. We have 3 musicals now that we can do, And I think in the grand scheme of things, is there more that we need to do? Yes, we can have that conversation, absolutely. But the opportunity that he and his team have brought to the table, I'm forever thankful for that. And now we can see people like last night. There was the Wicked in concert, oddly produced. I'm not saying it was the greatest show, but we saw all of these people of color singing all of the lead songs, which they never would have probably gotten a chance to do before that. So it's just these steps, these little things that keep happening in theater, I think and movies as well. I mean, we had In the Heights now, his contribution to Moana, to Viva.
I think Moana's a little overrated.
I agree with that, but again,
that's the gut punch.
But is it overrated for kids who look like that and have these songs that they can sing and they can, cosplay and go to Disney and there's a toy that looks like them? I mean, like, if we're talking scope and we're talking contribution, Bar, I'm gonna have to let you go.
That's fair. I should have taken that into consideration. It just didn't kind of cross my mind when I made this list. I was also kind of in a rush.
Look, I'm completely on the Disney side of things, despite Moana, despite Encanto, which is going to be coming out.
Yes.
Gizmo Duck. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely.
I will say, Bar, you were slightly in a rush. However, your number 1 and your number 4 were the first things you brought in. So you
That is
had
true.
an idea of who you were letting go first.
Keep the curtain up, Rue.
No, bring the curtain down, Rue.
No, yeah, we're bringing it down. And what we're gonna do now is since you talked about it, Matt, go on ahead.
I know mine. I know mine's gonna get me hate because I'm gonna be honest. I just went based off of this person's body of work, and other than what's looking like one movie, I've never actually been much of a fan, and that's Julie Andrews.
Oh,
yeah.
That's Dame Julie Andrews.
Don't you?
Yeah. I never loved Mary Poppins as a kid. I've always despised Sound of Music. And I could care less about the only thing I'd be sad about losing from her filmography, and it's weird to say this, is Aquaman. So
wait, say that one more time.
The only thing I'd be sad about losing would be Aquaman.
No, it's not, because that's probably one of the worst DCEU films there is, or at least when I've seen it. It's
wow.
Anyway, keep on going.
Even I didn't get removed.
Keep on going. I'm sorry, I have I loathe Aquaman. At times.
Oh no, I hate Aquaman too, so I can't really say anything.
I'm trying to picture a world without the Princess Diaries, and it's not a world I want to live in.
Okay, sorry. 2. I like the first Princess Diaries film. 2, fine. I'll give you 2 films.
Wow.
So I'm just gonna take the bullet right here. I'm actually with Matt. I actually chose Julie Andrews as well, but there's a damn good reason for it. It's because I'm pretty sure my mother used The Sound of Music for psychological torture against me, because she knew I hated this musical from the age of like 7, and for almost a solid year would just play it nonstop. And when she wasn't playing it, she was fucking singing it at the top of her lungs. And my mom can't hit a pitch to save her life.
Damn.
Yeah, there are several reasons why she and I are talking. I'm pretty sure that's one of them. But I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, what films of Julie Andrews do I like? Mary Poppins. Okay, sure. But I couldn't think of anything else that saved her from The Sound of Music for me. And I knew that this was probably going to be like the big nail in the coffin for me with this panel. Looking at Ryan's reaction.
You're not dying on a hill alone, buddy.
Bleeding.
You're not dying on a hill alone.
At least I will have someone to hoard off the angry pitchforks. So thank you, Matt, for taking the initial bullet. But I will be right there to take the rest of the barrage with you.
Hey, at least you weren't the one person to pick someone.
I mean, my
heart.
Yeah, I'm trying not to, completely roast anyone off of their decisions, but I'll keep my opinions for later. Well, there's time. There's time.
The Sound of Music, I agree. I never liked The Sound of Music, but she's easily like one of the best parts of that movie. Like, she is fantastic in that role. Like, just the way that she performs that role with such innocence, but there's also that deep sense of that there's like so many different layers of like innocence, and there's some guilt, and there's heartbreak, but there's hope, and there's joy, and the balance that she has, plus her singing voice. Oh my God, she's fantastic.
Not to mention it's a singing voice that unfortunately we may never hear again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that to just go ahead and like stab the dagger deeper into her heart, knowing that there's not much more that she can give at this age, but what she has given has been exemplary. Like when you think about movie musicals, and you think about the women who went ahead and made their mark in them, top 3, if not the top. Who else can you say?
Not Idina Menzel.
I mean,
why am I forgetting your name? There's someone.
You could say Barbara Streisand, Bette
I was going to say Barbara
Liza
Streisand.
Minnelli,
Patti LuPone, Liza But Julie Andrews is in the conversation for sure.
That was a lot more people than I thought they would be saying. But you know what? Before we get too much,
Judy Garland.
I'd put Rita Moreno in.
Julie Garland, I would say.
Absolutely, Rita
Moreno,
Moreno.
sure.
Absolutely.
Julie Garland, I would. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people I put before Julie Andrews.
I understand being annoyed by Sound of Music, but as a young Jewish boy, it was empowering and beautiful.
And that I understand. I'll never take when somebody can connect to something on a personal level, especially when it comes to their race or heritage. Never going to take that away from it. But
you see, and you know, as a young Jewish boy myself, as soon as I actually finally sat down and watched it in full and realized what was going on, a part of me has always kind of hated movies where they take the Holocaust and somehow put levity to it. That's always bothered me. So I've never actually seen Life is Beautiful, for instance, just because I know what it's about. I'm glad people find something out of that movie. I've looked at the previews and I just can't do it. And I'm sorry, I don't find much humor in that.
I respect that perspective. I feel the opposite. I think if we can't bring levity and pathos to something so tragic, then we're not fully examining the possibilities that art can bring to tragedy. But again, I totally respect where you're coming from.
Well, here's a little something that someone else we're going to talk about later also shared your dislike of Sound of Music. Gene Kelly turned down directing that movie.
Wow.
Didn't know that.
I think that was probably the right choice, though, because Robert Wise, as much as I don't like that movie, I think Robert Wise did a fantastic job directing it.
Yeah.
It's a very visually, it's a great film. I am not, visually, it's a great film. It's very well acted. So if I'm being objective about it, then sure, I can see why it's a classic. But in terms of me personally, if there's any movie musical that I can think of off the top of my head that I can just do without and never think of again, unfortunately, it is The Sound of Music.
And we're happy to see that you've gotten over it. Yes.
Speaking of Gene Kelly, that was his number 4.
Coho, I'm going to kill you.
And just to make this very quick, just a quick recap of everybody's number 4.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Claudia got rid of Idina, as did Ryan and Maxwell. Coho got rid of Gene. Matt and Will got rid of Julie, and Barr did something. But you know what?
Will, I'll do something again.
Yeah, he'll do something. Will, just keep going. Keep going. Who's your number 3, by the way?
Me?
No, Will.
No,
Will.
No, he really wants to, see me roast on the fucking fire on this one. I chose Gene Kelly.
There you go. We'll get it now.
Oh my God.
I will say this. This was a very, I changed this list so many times before submitting this. Because I even told Amaru, as soon as I realized it was the people, I'm like, oh God, my soul hurts so bad. And then I started thinking, okay, what criteria can I do? It's like at one point, he was, at one point he was number 4. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. And then at one point he was number 2. I was like, but there's something that eked it out a little bit more for me. So I looked at the full body of work. I looked at how everything impacted me. There's only one movie of his that really impacted me, which is Singing in the Rain. Great movie, but I can't, but honestly, I look at the rest of his filmography. I look at everything else that he's done. He's a great performer. He's a great choreographer. He's a great dancer. But to me, I just didn't feel it.
Well, let me tell you something, bud. I guess we're dying on the same hill again.
Oh my God, I'm gonna faint.
And honestly, virtually for the exact same reasons, although I had 2 films of his that I enjoy, and that is Singing in the Rain and American in Paris. But,
okay.
Yes.
So let's recap here. He's a great choreography, a great director, a great dancer, a great actor, a great singer, and he's in some of the greatest movies ever made. Single-handedly, like, set the path for the golden age of musicals in Hollywood. Like, the majority of musical movies would not exist or look the way they do if not for his impact on cinema. And you're like, nah, he's the worst of these four. That
Message.
No. My thing was,
do you allow cursing here, Rue?
Yes, go the fuck.
That doesn't make any fucking sense to me. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Wow.
Maxwell.
Wow.
And I'll say this. This is how I graded my list. What was I willing to lose in regards to what those people are going to part?
You could make a very cogent argument that if you lose Gene Kelly, every other movie musical after the
Doesn't even
1940s
exist.
doesn't
100%.
exist.
100%.
Doesn't exist.
True.
So say goodbye to all movie musicals.
The ballet sequence alone in An American in Paris should at least bump him into the top 2 of this list.
17-minute ballet. A 17-minute ballet. But, I mean, did you all just, like, go to the Wikipedia page or his IMDb and be like, oh, what, the first couple movies? Because, yeah, in the grant, like, I'm so baffled right now because
This man directed Hello Dolly.
he directed Hello Dolly.
That movie.
But what he did, I
He
mean,
danced with
worked
Jerry.
with Stanley Donen.
Maxwell's going to kill me later.
He, when he signed up for the war in 1944, he went to and started producing and directing documentaries for the war, so people were more educated about what the heck was going on. And then from there, started directing more and won how many Oscars? 7 Oscars with Hello Dolly. I mean, it picked Leslie Caron out. You know, she was a 19-year-old ballet dancer, and he was like, I want you. And she's like, I don't know anything about acting. He was like, nope, you are going to be in this movie. I mean, bringing ballet, like you said, to the forefront. I mean, the fact that people, that movie won Oscars also. I'm sweating right now.
I'd also like to point out the fact that people seem to, like, miss the fact that he is not just a terrific singer and a terrific dancer, but as an actor, he really can hold his own against some of the greats. It's not even a musical, but look at Inherit the Wind. He is holding his own against Spencer Tracy. Like, that is a hard thing to do.
I mean, when it comes down to it, most of the people that we're talking about here, you can say is like the epitome of a triple threat. Song, dance, act. Those were the kinds of people that you had to bring up during the times that they were making those movies and influenced many other people to be that diverse with their talents. To go ahead and chop him off at the leg, the whole thing comes crumbling down.
Before we get too much into it, let's just keep it going. So from here, we've kind of talked about everybody, but we're going to keep going on now why we got to start getting close to who we're picking. So for now, Maxwell, who do you have as your number 3?
Listen, I kind of hate you because other than Idina, these 3 are all like could arguably be put in the number 1 spot for their contributions. I love you. So as much as it pains me to say Julie Andrews is my number 3, just because I hold the other 2 a little bit higher, but you know, as we covered, she is one of the great musical theater screen performers. I'm a huge fan of The Princess Diaries. Take that for what it will and what it says about me. But I just don't think
that's why
they are great movies.
It absolutely is. But I think when you're looking at overall contribution, she's just an actress, an incredible actress, but she just doesn't have as much of a depth of impact as the other 2. So,
well, Coho also had Julie Andrews at number 3.
Coho.
Anybody else with Julie Andrews at number 3?
Andrew Barr is going to have like a hernia after this, I feel.
Well, there you go. You just said, come on, Coho, and you're doing the same thing.
Coho's doing it. No, I might have said a Coho because he had Gene Kelly and Julie Andrews. He is an ageist.
Anyway, Barr and Claudia, you also have Julie Andrews as number 3. Why do you have her as number 3?
So let me just say that my 2 and 3 went back and forth a lot, and I kind of regret putting Andrews at 3 instead of 2, but I had already handed it in my list. the thing with Andrews is, as much as I love Mary Poppins, and it's one of my favorite performances of all time, and I think that she has one of the most beautiful voices when it comes to the original recordings of My Fair Lady and Camelot and things like that, her range as an actress isn't always really big. She kind of tends to play very similar characters a lot, even if they're just like they're always very elegant, very classy. Not to say that she never has done anything else outside of that, like the Eliza Doolittle, like the beginning, but most of the stuff that I've seen her in, most of the stuff that I know her for, it's very similar characters.
And I'll agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, she plays those characters well, but it's the same character over and over again, essentially. And
except maybe the keratin, which is a thing.
I'll disagree with that. I don't think that Mary Poppins is the same character by any means, or is Victoria. I think her, but I agree with everything that Maxwell brought up as far as just her scope just isn't as broad when it comes to musical theater movies. She hasn't done the producing, she hasn't done the directing and all that kind of stuff. That being said, she's the reason that one of the biggest reasons why I started dancing and I started singing. I mean, those movies were staples in our household, so they're highly influential. And yes, this is very painful. I want all three of these last three. I want them all.
Yep.
Them all.
This
now
is
I have High School Musical in my head.
This is what the show is for, to inflict pain, and I like it because it's very fun. So, Ryan, go ahead and keep it going.
I feel like I have an idea of what Amr likes to do in the bedroom now.
My fiance just
Woo!
This was hilarious.
It just got spicy.
Yeah.
Ryan, who is your number 3?
Okay, so by process of elimination, and considering my overall reactions to the last two choices, this is the point where I have to throw away my shot. I got it. And mind you, everything I said earlier about the whole triple threat thing, that goes with him as well. But if I'm thinking about the 3 remaining people, Lynn's, like you always said when it comes to like one's gotta stay. If you get rid of somebody, everything they've done is gone. Lin just doesn't have as much of a backing as, say, Gene Kelly and Julie Andrews. All right? He doesn't have that wealth of, product to work with. So if I'm going to lose everything of theirs, or I'm going to lose what is his, which is basically Hamilton and In the Heights and everything he's done in the past decade or so, it's more like a flash than the ongoing streak that you have of the other two. So that's pretty much the elimination process on that.
And I'm going to disagree with that. That's a flash in the pan. Yes, he's been around the shortest amount of time, but think of everything that he's done in that short amount of time period. What he has done for his culture, what he has done for a lot of people of color at this point in time. I think his legacy is going to outlast far beyond what we can even comprehend at this point.
And
a lot of
that's a possibility, but that's more hopeful. That's more future. If we're talking about just what they have right now.
I mean, the man won a Pulitzer, a Grammy, an Emmy, a Tony. He wrote songs for the Star Wars movies, so Say Goodbye to Force Awakens.
Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, even though people would like to...
Say Goodbye to Bring It On, the musical.
Right.
Say goodbye
to Say Goodbye to Freestyle Love Supreme.
Hold on. And you also got to remember how much time went into developing both Hamilton and In the Heights. Maxwell, I bet, can attest. It's not easy, and it's a long process to getting a show on Broadway. And just because, sure, it might not be, his scope might not be as large right now, but that's because of the time and commitment that goes into just putting together one show. In his case, 2 shows. Yeah. So you can't hold that against him.
And that would be fine if, say, I was like comparing him to someone like Andrew Lloyd Webber or something like that. Then,
never compare him to Lloyd Webber. No.
Competition, sure. But if we're basing him against 2 other long-standing professional performers of stage and screen, his is the shorter end of the stick.
All right. It seems like we're about the time where we're just gonna have to
Agree to disagree.
take the gloves off and just go all
I
out.
I can't say anything considering where I put him. Like I can't.
Yeah, don't even throw it in. Don't.
But before we get into it, just to recap everybody's top two, Claudia and Maxwell both have Lin and Jean. Will, Coho, and Matt have Lin-Manuel and Idina. Will has Lin-Manuel and Idina, and Ryan has Jean and Julie. I hope I got everybody. Sometimes I screw this up, but it's okay. With that, here are the numbers we have. 3 people kept Gene Kelly. 3 people kept Lin-Manuel, and 1 person kept Julie. If you're following along, it's not hard to figure out who kept Julie, but as they are on the island, I will allow them to go first before releasing the rest of the list. The person who kept Julie Andrews, you have the stage at least for a bit.
Okay, so going back to my previous argument about, both Gene Kelly and Julie Andrews having that long-standing history, having that backbone of movie musical, it's really hard to separate the two. Look, I would give Gene Kelly all the credit in the world, but compared to the two of them, then if I get rid of one person's work or the other person's work, either one's going to be harsh. So at that point, it simply comes down to emotion. Who, affected me more when I saw their performances? And for me, Julie Andrews was just that much more gravitating. Seeing her as Mary Poppins, everyone can go ahead and say whether or not they like that. But you know what? For the longest time, being a Disney fan, seeing that live action Mary Poppins, it's like, when you're a kid, you don't expect to enjoy that kind of live action type movie. You're supposed to just stick to the cartoons. Watching her was just enjoyable, completely enjoyable. An enjoyment that I didn't think my little 8-9-year-old self was going to like. So that sticks with me. And then when you go ahead and you look at everything else she's done since she's lost her voice, she has still been just as productive, even if only as a voice actress. I mean, the Shrek movies alone, it may be little snippets here and there, but at least I still get to hear that voice, that angelic, regal, just almost softening voice. Like, if you hear her say something, it'll calm you down easy. And you know what? The one movie that no one else has really mentioned that I personally enjoy, Victor Victoria. That is a role that I never would have expected from her based upon everything I had seen sooner. And yet, even that's one of the more funny movies I've ever seen of her, or of any musical orientation or any stage presentation. And that's the big difference between her and Gene Kelly. And Julie Andrews just affects me more emotionally than Kelly does. Kelly is a supreme talent, but it just doesn't snap for me.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought the movie you were about to bring up was Torn Curtain.
Torn Curtain was good, but I mean, between that and Victor Victoria, I'm gonna go Victor Victoria just because the last.
And Ryan, as you know, you can continue to chime in about Julie or whoever else, but just so everybody knows now, it's a free-for-all. Talk how you want. But Claudia Maxwell and Barr.
I thought he was going to bring up the classic starring Dwayne Johnson, Tooth Fairy. So we should dodge that bullet, right?
I mean, we got a couple of those in the comments.
Thank God we still get to watch Tooth Fairy.
There we go. But with that, Claudia Maxwell and Barr, Andrew kept Gene Kelly. Coho, Matt, and Will kept Lin-Manuel.
Will, I see we have the exact same list.
Yeah, round one, fight.
Probably, yeah.
You two had the exact same list, and Claudia and Maxwell also had the exact same list as well.
There we go.
But going ahead, why did you all keep who you kept in this very difficult situation?
So
okay, go ahead. You first.
I'll be the first to say the biggest reason I kept Idina Menzel were because of my connection to the stage show Rent. That was when I stopped paying attention to theater and all that at a young age. The play that got me back into it was Rent, and then I saw her in the film Rent, and then Rent just reignited my love for the theater. So it was more of a sentimental reason for putting her at 2. I know compared to the other two I chose, she's probably the lesser of them. But sentimental reasons can get in the way sometimes, and that's what happened there. So
Yeah, because Rent is terrible.
Thank you. It's an unfinished musical.
It is. It's terrible.
See, we're gonna get along great. I had her at number 2. As I said, it was really tough between her and Andrews, and I think the only reason I picked her over Andrews is because, while I think Julie Andrews is the better singer, I think Menzel just has a little bit more range. Not a wildly.
No, she really doesn't.
Notice I didn't make any arguments in regards to her singing.
But as I also said earlier, yeah. As I also said earlier, I regret putting her at number 2 and Andrews at number 3. I would have flipped that had it been like a few hours ago. Anyway, back from saving my own ass. Gene Kelly is just like the massive threat. Actor, director, singer, dancer, choreographer. You combine those two. Even in bad movies, he's always like the greatest part. Like, I love Brigadoon, the stage musical. The movie's not that great, but he's easily the best part of Brigadoon.
Well, to quote Beetlejuice the musical, fuck Brigadoon.
I need to be like super high on mushrooms to watch that show ever again.
Yeah.
I really like that one, but that's just me. But even in, like, if you also count his performances, and not just Singing in the Rain, where he gives, come on, let's face it, one of the greatest performances in the musical, and the dancing, oh my Jesus. But also in other movies like On the Town, he's fantastic. I already brought up Inherit the Wind, where he's super underappreciated in that movie. And just, he even has the voice that it's got that warmth to it that's so welcoming and inviting. And it's just, the way that he uses his voice, it's not just as a power performance. Like, the dynamics and the way that he connects to, like, the lyrics, Gene Kelly is just one of the greatest.
Yeah, and that's why he's the person that I captained. It was between my top 2 were Lynn and Gene, and simply because of time, because I feel like their contributions to movies and musicals are going to be equal eventually, as far as but Gene Kelly's just his passion to make dance and musical theater accessible. You know, just being so specific with the costuming, the things that he would wear, so he would look like an everyday person, an everyday man, and say like, but you can do this too. I mean, I just think it's huge, and no one's talking about how hot he is.
Oh God, he is. He's not. Claudia, he's not just a snack. He is a full meal. Like, he is like appetizer, entree, and dessert.
There's an Instagram account.
He's a buffet.
I'm just.
Oh yeah, all you can eat. Let's go.
I can't. Oh God.
Look, I mean, even ignoring the fact that Singing in the Rain is my 3rd favorite movie of all time. I mean, he was not just a triple threat. He was a infinite threat. Choreographing, directing, acting, singing, dancing. I mean, just watch Moses Supposes. The way he moves his feet and the facial expressions is just
and how
spectacular.
He made Debbie Reynolds look. I mean, she wasn't a
she
wasn't a dancer.
No.
Yeah.
And we haven't even mentioned Anchors Away yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so just
or
his impact.
Also, the fact that he can do all of this in French in The Young Girls of Roquefort.
Yes, absolutely. And look, I think what Claudia said has a lot of merit. In 10, 20 years, Lin may surpass Gene Kelly. We're about to see the first film that Lin directed in Tick, Tick, Boom. So he could prove himself. I'm very excited.
That's going to be an amazing film.
He could prove himself to be as much of an infinite talent as Gene Kelly. He's not there yet. However, Lin's impact on people of color cannot be ignored. What he's done for both stage and screen over the last, since 2008 when In the Heights hit Broadway, I think there's been a drastic shift in the way all sorts of Broadway musicals are cast simply because of what he did. When West Side Story was revived in like 2010, he did new Spanish translations. Sondheim himself said, "This is the guy I want doing new Spanish translations of my lyrics." If you have Sondheim's approval, you're okay in my book. So
God himself.
Lin could surpass Gene Kelly down the line, but for now he's like a very close second for me.
Yeah, Maxwell, all the stuff you touched on now and Claudia touched on it earlier is why I had him at my number one. Just being someone of color and throughout high school, we had, for example, my freshman year we did Seussical. All 3 black kids were cast as the Wickersham brothers. 3 black kids cast as monkeys. Next year we did Fame.
That's the appropriate reaction right there.
Yeah. The next year we did Fame, which has an illiterate black kid. The year after that, we did Thoroughly Modern Millie, and you had that
which
really
is a very,
racist,
very racist musical.
Awful musical.
Yes, it is a very, very racist.
Why do high schools keep doing that show?
Well, there was a revised production that was supposed to play at Encore's City Center right before the pandemic hit. So I was curious to see how they changed the book, because they brought on people of color to alter it. And Ashley Park was going to star as Millie, so you have an actress of color as Millie. So I was curious to see how they changed it, but as it stands, it's not very good, and it is wildly racist.
And then my senior year, we did Hairspray. So
Matt, why do you think I'm never coming back to that town again? My experience in 1 year in that place was
1.5 years.
What town are we talking about?
Mayfield Heights, Ohio. It's a suburb of Cleveland. That's why I always give them a hard time. But yeah, it's like having someone be like, "No, I'm breaking the mold. I'm gonna cast the black guy as George Washington. I'm gonna cast like all of this."
And we lost him. We'll keep it going from there until we get him back.
Oh, come
So
on.
I definitely I will pick up the baton from where Matt's going, and I can't argue any point that he has there. What I will say though is, for me personally, I listen to a lot of musical soundtracks. I go to see musicals whenever I can.
Cast albums.
But for when it comes to anything that Lin-Manuel Miranda has done, I always feel this overwhelming sense of joy that I never leave dry-eyed. I have never been able to listen to the Hamilton soundtrack without bawling at least 5 different times, which I eventually had to take that out of my car rotation because I can't drive on the freeway with a face full of tears. I can't listen to In the Heights without bawling my eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
It's he has a way with lyrics and music that I've just not experienced before. And as a special personal anecdote with Hamilton, I'm pretty sure that Hamilton is the reason I am married right now, because when right before when my now wife and I were dating, we went to a trip to go to New York. She's a huge New York person. I've always I always wanted to go back, so we went with someone who knew Broadway, and she told me, "You get to pick a show." I saw the synopsis of Hamilton. I saw the video that Lin-Manuel did at the correspondence dinner. The look on her face was one of just abject confusion. I'm like, "This is the one we got to go see." She's like, "Well, what about this and this?" It's like, no. Hip hop history. You gave me one choice. Hip hop history. Let's do this. And then it was like, I think about 2 months before the trip, because we bought the tickets well in advance. They were dirt cheap at the time. And
wow,
she finally
early.
Oh yeah, we went to like one of the first shows when it was out of previews. So comparatively speaking, the tickets that we bought, I think, were like pennies compared to some of the other tickets that we were buying. And we were like close. We were like, I think, like 3 or 4 rows from the center stage. So so I got to see, sweat bead off of people's heads. It was just staggering to see. And she finally admitted, okay, with the amount of traction this is gaining, I think you might be right. I think this might be the show. And this was the one show when we were telling people what we were seeing while we were out there. Everyone's like, how the fuck did you buy tickets to this? It's like, well, we bought them 6 months in advance before the hype train. So that's all you need to do. Just roll the dice. And seeing it just ignited this spark of creativity in myself, because like I look at In the Heights, which I've seen now a couple times. I've seen what they did with Hamilton. It's like the stage is so bare bones compared to most other stage productions, but it is so alive with energy. The set, it becomes a character unto itself. And that's just something I just haven't seen in any other stage production. So
we have a little bit amount of time because I know Matt has to get out of here. So just quick, Will, just quick last thoughts on outside of Lin. Anybody else on the panel and the list tonight? Will. I guess going back to number 2, just very, very briefly, the reason why I picked Idina as my number 2, kind of what Matt's saying is just sentimental reasons. I look at what she has done in terms of, the Frozen movies, in terms of Enchanted, all these movies just kind of came into my life at the appropriate times. I kind of feel sometimes that she lucked into these things, like Uncut Gems being, she was like just the absolute, I think, one of the best parts of that movie myself. I think she was very underrated in that, but I can see why people don't like her. But for me, there's a special place in my heart for her. Sorry. Maxwell, last thoughts why you kept Gene Kelly on the list in general, the four choices we had tonight.
Yeah, like I said, he does it all, and he really paved the way for ostensibly all cinematic musicals that were to follow in the successive 50 or 60 years. They all owe a debt of gratitude to what he did with On the Town and Singing in the Rain and Hello Dolly. So he set the mold.
Ryan, your final thoughts on the list, on your choice in the panel tonight.
Okay, first of all, never watched Tooth Fairy, so not even part of anything. But I mean, I don't know if this necessarily makes me the old man here, going with Andrews and Kelly at the final 2. And like I said, just being able to separate the two, and I'm screwed either way, so I had to go emotional. And by the sound of it, a lot of people had good emotional reactions and good emotional reasons for why they picked what they picked. And ultimately, that's really Broadway. Like Broadway stage shows, that sort of thing, it's probably a little bit more heavy-handed in some aspects compared to movies, but when you really sit down and you experience the thing live and you see the people that close to you singing and you have that reverberation in the theater, it's hard not to have an emotional reaction. So, I mean, if anybody did this just based on logic, I don't know what you're doing. You gotta have like heart in every single decision you make here today.
You can't discuss musicals and
Gotta
logic.
have heart.
You start that.
Don't start the singing, Bar, but go ahead and start your final thoughts on today's show, your choice, and the 4 options we had tonight.
All 4 of these people are incredible in their own way. I know some people might disagree about one of those, but which is fair. And it was a really hard list to make. I still, as I said, my 2 and 3 I kept going back and forth on. I made a mistake, but I respect all of these lists because it was kind of an impossible feat in some senses.
I've done my job then. Thank you, Matt.
Sure, yeah.
Matt, give us your final thoughts. You kept Lin, but you had a partner over there in your full list in general. But your final thoughts on tonight's show.
ultimately, I couldn't lose my favorite episode of this show. I couldn't lose the season 9 story time episode where Lynn's just rapping.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. No, I would have lost How I Met Your Mother.
You would have. You will.
That is one of the best episodes of television ever made.
Didn't How I Met Your Mother really lose itself though? At the end?
That's it. No, we're not going there. We're not going there, Maxwell. I like you. We're not going there, Maxwell. We got another show to do tonight. We are not going there now.
This is one of the most passionate moments of the show.
And finally, Claudia, thank you for coming on. Take us out. Your final thoughts on these 4, on your choice, on just the show tonight in general.
Well, this was an absolute blast to be a part of. So thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I just hope this conversation opens the door for all of us to maybe look deeper into all of these performers' bodies of work. And also for people who are just tuning in, if they've only seen Frozen and they haven't seen, Idina's theatrical stuff, or if they've only seen Mary Poppins and they haven't seen Julie Andrews' other things. And she also has children's books and children's education shows that she's also done. There's more to these people, and I hope it opens people and gets them curious about everyone and what's going on. And then maybe they'll want to be a part of it also, because to me, it's the greatest thing to be able to sing and dance and use all of your body and sweat and brain. And, it's the most fun thing.
That's me. I'm those people that she's talking about.
Come to dance class with me.
I would love to. I would love to. But before we get out of here, a couple things, as always. We know Claudia, Maxwell and Bar kept Jean. Ryan kept Julie. Will, Ko and Matt kept Lin-Manuel. A couple of stats. Out of the list, 40% of the people who put in the list kept Lin-Manuel, 30% kept Jean, and 30% kept Julie. So, Ryan, you weren't really on your own, just on your own tonight. Nobody kept Idina. Wow, 50% of the people on the list kept Idina. Bar, you're the only one who got rid of Lin-Manuel, because
I'm sorry.
And then
no heart.
And then 20% of the people got rid of Jean first, and 20% of the people got rid of Julie first.
Absolute insanity.
It is. It is. But of course, as always, last but not least is my riddle for the next episode. I am going to be going on a hiatus for a little bit, as Will mentioned that Hamilton might be the reason he's getting married. I am getting married within the next week.
You and Justin Smith, huh?
Also, there's a pretty important match of mine coming up within the next month that I kind of have to study for a lot.
Yes.
So I'm going to do that instead. But the riddle for next episode, this week we talked about singing in the rain, but there's a lot of people who just can't stand the rain. While others, they want to say, give me some more. They see it, they stand up, they roll out, and they just say, give me the rain, put it where my eyes can see. While others are still going to be like, why would you want to go and do that? You can live your life, you can get your freak on, but if you go out there, you might break your neck. For Bar, for Claudia, for Ryan, for Will, for Maxwell, and for Matt, we are out of here.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care.